Mike Dell's World number 290 for November 30th, 2017, and it's the last NaPodPoMo post for this month, or for this year, and maybe forever, who knows? I might try it again next year, we'll see. But I want to kind of reminisce a little bit. Actually, I dug up the oldest known episode of Benzoid Report, which is what this podcast was before I aptly renamed it. So I want you to hear what how I started a podcast back then, and also how my audio sounded back then. So I won't play this whole thing. We're just going to play a bit of it. Dig that groovy music, eh? Okay, from the flight path of Cherry Capital Airport in downtown Traverse City, Michigan, this is the Benzoid Report number 35, and I'm Mike, your humble host. Anyway, this is attempt number 3 of recording this podcast. Attempt number 1, for some reason, my tongue got tied in a knot, and I couldn't get 3 words out without stumbling and stammering. So I aborted that attempt. The second attempt went absolutely beautifully, up until I realized I forgot to hit the record button. So, anyway, it's Monday. Let's see, this weekend didn't do a whole lot. Saturday, had a wedding to go to. One of our friends got married, and she's now on her honeymoon. It was a nice outdoor ceremony right there on the shores of East Grand Traverse Bay off of Lake Michigan, out on the peninsula, on the Old Mission Peninsula. If you look for Traverse City, you'll notice there's a little peninsula protruding out in between the 2 bays. All right, well, I'm going to fade that out. I'm trying to think of whose wedding that was. That was, I believe, from, let's see, July of 2006, I want to say. So, over 11 years ago. Let me look here. Yeah, it was July 24th, 2006 that I recorded that. Apparently, that was a Monday. And, you know, I haven't changed a hell of a lot, have I? The audio is probably better. I still say and anyway too many times, and too much podcasting navel gazing and all that good stuff. So, but I thought that would be interesting to play that. But yeah, that was a little over 11 years ago. A couple, 11 years, 4 months, 5 months? It's amazing how time flies when you're having fun. And from that podcast, all the other stuff that I've been doing and people I've met and all that have happened. Obviously, if you listen to my episode 100 over at podcasthelpdesk.com, you'll hear the whole history. But some of the cool things that happened because of that, and I went through all this before, but, I wouldn't have the job I have now if it wasn't for that little humble podcast, which didn't sound like a hell of a lot. So I always encourage people, even if it's just stupid little stuff like what we're doing here, it can lead to stuff. I've traveled all over the country because of my podcast. I've been to California, Vegas, Chicago, Texas. Going to be in Florida this year. Going to be Nashville this next year, and Philadelphia, and possibly London. There's just all sorts of things. And the people I've met, I've met, anybody who's anybody in podcasting, I've probably met them, or at least know of them. And, it's kind of cool. It really is, and plus I've gained a lot of really good friendships through podcasting. And I won't name everybody here because I would always forget somebody, but suffice it to say, you guys know who you are, and
I've just met a ton of people because of podcasting, and then these silly little events like NaPodPoMo. And what was the other one? Way back when we were trying to prove that podcasting could move the needle on music. Black Lab, a group, and I should have had that song handy, but I'm not gonna, because we want to get this over with and out. So, but the rock group Black Lab, which not a huge group, believe me, but they put out a song and we distributed it. I should say, the podcast community distributed it to as many podcasts as possible, and all on the same day we played it, and all on the same day we tried to get to get people to download, buy that tune. It was a 99-cent tune on iTunes and on Amazon Music, either place. And we actually charted that song on Apple. We charted that song on Amazon. It was, we did move the needle. It wasn't the number one on either of those, but it was still pretty cool. But, things like that, it's an interesting hobby. And I consider myself a hobbyist podcaster. And you may find that weird because I work in the business, but, for the most part, all my podcasts that I do are hobbies. They're, it's an advanced hobby, obviously. I really get into it, but I like to experiment with things. That's why, I do this show. This show is my experimental show, you never know what you're going to get when you hit play on one of these. And, I didn't really design it that way, but that's, what I use this show for. And then, Podcast Help Desk, I love to help, people get started in podcasting the right way. Because I did everything wrong, and I did everything wrong several times. And I'm continuing to do things wrong. And that's how I learn, so I can tell you, don't do that. On my Podcast Help Desk show. On the Fast Food History Show, that's a complete hobby. I just love digging for information about all these old fast food places. I don't eat fast food all the time, don't eat it all that much at all. But that's even led to a couple of cool things. I got invited to judge a contest down in Muskegon coming up here the middle of December. They're having the Muskegon Wiener Fest. I kept saying Winter Fest, but it's a bunch of the local hot dog places and drive-ins and stuff down there are doing a chili dog contest, and I get to go down and judge it. Well, that would have never happened had I not started that podcast. Now, admittedly, that was a little quick because I just started it this month. So, stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. I got to go to the Consumer Electronics Show out in Las Vegas and be part of the broadcast crew for Tech Podcast Network. That was a lot of fun, and I may do that again in the future. Who knows? But it was just, great to just be there, at these great big conferences and even some of the little conferences. I've been to PodCamp Ohio a couple of times, went to PodCamp Cincinnati, which was actually in northern Kentucky, which makes sense. Since Cincinnati area is kind of across the border there, but that's a whole nother thing. But, got to meet several people, Daniel J. Lewis, Dave Jackson, just a bunch of, people that I consider my friends now. And it's, things like that you get to do because of a podcast. Get to be on local radio, WNMC. I can, I'm on their fill-in list right now, but I used to do a regular show over there. And, if I wanted to do a show, I just watch the fill-in list and I can go over and do a show. It's awesome. Play some music and, talk on the radio. My friend Steve, morning rock radio guy, I got to fill in a few times as the morning news guy. And I get to go over there, whenever I feel like I got something to contribute, I go over there and join those guys. It's a lot of fun, and it's on commercial radio. Stuff like that I would have never done had I not been into podcasting. I mean, that's how I met Steve. He heard my podcast, and then realized after he'd listened to a bunch of them that I was in Traverse City. And he invited me over there to, because I had done a episode of Podcast Help Desk where I complained about, how lame commercial radio was. And commercial radio, for the most part, is lame. It really is. But, he wanted to talk about it on the commercial radio, which just blew me away. It was awesome. So, it was kind of weird. I got a phone call saying, hey, you're on the radio over on whatever the radio station was. And so I flipped over there, and sure enough, he's playing part of my podcast on commercial radio. And, of course, he got a hold of me after that and actually had me come in. And then I actually interviewed him on Podcast Help Desk from his studio at the time. So that was pretty cool. So, stuff like that would have never happened had I not started a podcast and started this very podcast. So, as you heard, it started out as the Benzoid Report, and somewhere around episode, 80 something? Here, let me look in my vast archive. See, I'm missing everything up until that episode that I just played the intro, 35. So I don't have anything before episode 35. But, let's see, when did it change to Mike Dell's World? Let's see. I don't know when it was exactly. Well, 96, 93. Oh, I see what I did. All right, so MDW 92. But before that, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then I switched to I figured I'd add it to the benzoid number. So I've done a whole lot more episodes than 290. This is just episode 290 because I lost track of a lot of episodes. A lot of them I didn't number. One of the services I used prior to episode 35 there had a phone-in option. And so literally I could dial a phone number, talk into my phone, hang up, and it would post an episode. So, and I did that several times. So I, truth be known, I probably have almost 400 episodes, but, I lost a bunch of them in the mix and don't count them. So officially episode 290. And on New Year's Day, if I do this all right, I'll be doing 300. And on that episode, I'm going to see if I can dig up some earlier stuff than episode 35. But I've asked and asked and asked, and nobody's been able to find it. The Wayback Machine at archive.org, can't find anything prior to episode 35. So anyway, it is what it is. And like I said, this is my experimental show, so don't be surprised if you hear stuff that you wouldn't normally hear on a podcast. It's my hobby, and this one especially. So appreciate you guys staying tuned for this whole long month of daily episodes. That is really something else. It's the first time I've ever made it through, and I've tried. I want to say I've started 6 or 7 times to do NaPodPoMo, and this is the first year I've actually made it all the way through, and I didn't record ahead too much. Did a couple, over the last weekend or the weekend before, I forget. I did 2 or 3 ahead, and then I did a couple more in a couple other spots, but hopefully you didn't notice. So. But for the most part, I would just turn on the mic every day and say something or do something. So anyway, stay tuned, stay subscribed. If you're not subscribed to the Mike Dell's World feed, go over to MikeDell.com, push the appropriate button, and as my friend, another friend I met because of podcasting always says, you push the appropriate button and then you will feel a vibration in your pants when we put out an episode. Anyway, catch me next time.